What's going on, everybody? It's Overjoyed coming at you with a brand new video, and I am very excited today. More excited than I've ever been to cover a wave of support for a deck. Y'all may know just how excited I was when Trap Tricks got the structure deck revealed, but that pales in comparison to what we're getting today, because finally they have revealed the coveted Mermail Atlantean support that we're getting out of Rage of the Abyss. So this was technically supposed to be a structure deck due to like the structure deck R series. How they did with like Fire King, for example, which I would have been fine with as well, but they ended up putting it in Rage of the Abyss instead, which is also completely thematically fitting because it's kind of supposed to be like a retrain of Abyss Rising. So I don't want to waste any more time. I think there's like a total of 5 cards. There's 4 on this page, and then as you can see, well, you can't really see because my face is blocking it, but there's a thing over here that says, you know, it's got a new card called Turmoil of Sea and Flames. There's like a retrain of an old trap that used to exist or something. But anyways, I don't want to waste any more time. I have to go to work in a little bit, so I don't want to take too long. Let's go ahead and get started. So starting off, we have Mermail Shadow Bodyguards. Interesting. This is clearly like an Atlantean artwork, so I don't know why it's a Mermail, but it's a level 3 water sea serpent with 0 attack and 1900 defense. Oh, it's always treated as an Atlantean card. Okay, that's interesting because they've never officially linked them like that. You can only use each effect of this card's name once per turn. You can discard 1 card to the graveyard, and the levels of all waters you control currently become 7 till the end of the turn, and if sent to the graveyard to activate a water monster's effect, special 1 level 4 or lower Atlantean or Mermail from your deck. Okay, but you're locked into water monsters for the rest of the turn. Alright. So I was like, wow, that's kind of broken, but no, okay, so it does lock you into water, so it does give you a little bit of a restriction, but keep in mind, water has actually been getting, like, a lot of really nice, generic good stuff, like, in the last few years, just slowly, bit by bit, you know, things like Dragite, things like Arcathes, things like Chengying, and now you got like all the ice barrier stuff as well. Like, water is actually not too shabby when it comes to their toolbox anymore. Though stuff like this is very helpful. So I'm really just not sure about this first effect at all. Like, I probably would never have this card on board personally. But I think this part in particular to get Neptabyss from the deck is really sick. So I used to be like kind of hesitant on when it came to like water locking in Mermail because, you know, back then you wouldn't really water lock until you went into Coral Anemone, and I mean, in that case, then you would go into your full combo, which did water lock you. But honestly, it's not a huge deal at all anymore. Again, there's just a lot of generic good stuff you can go into, and you can kind of just play freely into whatever board you feel like. Next up, we have Abyssrhine the Atlantean Spirit. It's a water aqua effect, level 3, 600 attack and defense, always treated as a Mermail, so I really like that they finally combine the archetypes. Like, these are both treated as both archetypes, which is awesome. Also, interesting to see that she has the ring in her hand. Like, this is the one that basically Mermails are supposed to like covet after, and the Atlanteans stole it, and the Mermails kind of went insane. So it says you can only use each effect of this card's name once per turn. You can tribute this card from your hand and an Atlantean or Mermail from your hand or field to take 1 level 7 fish, sea serpent, or aqua from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it. Also, you are locked into waters from the extra deck. And during your opponent's turn quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard and discard a card to draw 1 card. Holy shit, this seems kind of insane. So first off, oh my god, finally, we have a way to Rhoda for fucking Teus. I've literally been begging for a way to Rhoda Teus generically or in archetype for ages outside of Abyssrhine, because god, I hate that Abyssrhine is only on an opponent's turn. So this does lock you into water. Again, really not a big deal, but it pitches basically itself and another thing to trigger its effect, and also gets you Teus. So if you pitch this alongside the new guy, like the Shadow Guards, you can just easily get a Neptabyss and a Teus on board, which is pretty sick. And then on top of that, it already would have been perfectly fine if it just had that effect, but on top of that, you're also able to trigger something like a heavy infantry on the opponent's turn and draw a card, which is huge because that's another disruption off of potentially drawing into a hand trap. And keep in mind, both of these cards are searchable off of Abyss Pike, and so they're a lot easier to access than you may think. Next up, we have the Poseidra retrain. This is Poseidra Abyss, the Atlantean dragon deity. Funnily enough, I swear I talked with someone about the idea of a Poseidra Xyz, which is pretty funny. But it is a water sea serpent Xyz rank 7, 3000 attack, 1800 defense, that requires 3 level 7 monsters. But once per turn, you can also Xyz summon it by using an Atlantean or Mermail Xyz you control, transfer its materials to this card. Once per turn, you can attach 2 from this card and send a water from your hand or deck to the graveyard to non-target return up to 3 cards your opponent controls to the hand. and if this Exceed Summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can discard 1 card and special summon 3 level 3 or lower fish, sea serpents, and or aquas from your hand or graveyard. Jesus Christ, okay. So this isn't quite a disruption because it's not a quick effect, but it is some massive removal because you're detaching 2 materials, yeah, which is not a big deal at all. But you're getting 3 non-target bounces for any cards on top of whatever you dumped, probably a heavy infantry or a marksman, which is going to pop a 4th card. So you can potentially clear boards just by having 2 level 7s or even 2 level 3s if you want to play Abyssrhine. Also, keep in mind, this does not say if it's destroyed or sent by an opponent or anything. It straight up says if this Exceed Summon card is sent to the graveyard. So you can go ahead, you can overlay to make this, wipe your opponent's board, and then link it off to start going into some crazy link combos and get multiple bodies on board back, so you can go for an OTK right after, which is what Mermail used to be all about, was OTKing. So this card seems kind of nuts overall, especially in a going second variant of Mermail, which might actually become viable again. Alright, so I lied, there's actually 5 cards coming out of this, which is awesome, not including the other one in the new tab. So this is Neptabyss, the Royal Mermail. It's a Link monster, a Water Sea Serpent Link 3, 2400 attack, and with all bottom arrows. And it requires 2 or more monsters, including a Fish, Sea Serpent, or Aqua, and you can only use the 2nd and 3rd effect once per turn. Your opponent cannot target water monsters, as card points to with card effects. If a water monster is sent to the graveyard to activate a card effect, you can take an Abyss equip spell from your deck or graveyard and either add it to your hand or equip it to this card. And if this card is destroyed by your opponent, you can add 1 Atlantean or Mermail monster from your deck to your hand. So on one hand, I do really like the ability to get like more Abyss equip spells, so you can play like both Kraken and Mizuchi maybe, so you don't have to just rely on Megalo searching 1. Also, the targeting protection is pretty nice, its body size isn't too bad. Also, this is some okay floating. But on the other hand, I mean, taking all of those resources to make a Link 3 and making this instead of something else, not too sure about it, but to be fair, you are going to be waterlocked. There's not going to be too many like better options. So what you could do is you could make this by linking off the Poseidra Abyss, special all the dudes to its zones, and then link off into a couple more things, you know, things like Coral Anemone if you didn't use it to go into this. The targeting protection is pretty cool, and like this will probably be super easy to trigger, so that's extra damage on board and a disruption in case your opponent has anything that would otherwise stop you from OTKing. So this probably isn't a bad one of, especially in a blind second variant. Oh, and it probably helps that we actually are getting a new Abyss equip spell, Abyss Sting of Triana, or Triaina, something like that. But it says you can only activate 1 of it per turn, and you can only use its 3rd effect per turn. Special summon 1 Atlantean or Mermail from your hand or graveyard, and if you do, equip it with this card. If the equipped monster be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can send it to the graveyard instead, and you can banish it from your grave and target up to 3 Fish, Sea Serpent, and or Aqua monsters in your graveyard and or banishment, and shuffle them into the deck. So basically, they kind of got like a Makonko level card here. It's a free monster reborn for any Atlantean or Mermail, and that counts for the Exceeds as well. It gives it a little bit of cool protection as well. Also, keep in mind when this card goes to the graveyard, it doesn't look like it kills the card at all, so the protection is really good. Obviously, it'd be kind of stupid if it went to the graveyard if it was there to protect from the battle of card effect destruction. And then also, not a super bad Pot of Avarice style effect, even though it doesn't draw a card or anything like that, because one of the problems with the Atlantean engine in particular is that you do run out of resources for Neptabyss, because you typically only play like 3 Dragoons, 2 Infantry, 1 Marksman, something like that, and you can go through that pretty easily over the span of a couple of turns, especially your Dragoons, which you can get rid of like that. But putting those back and things like your Heavy Infantry and Marksman for more disruption is pretty damn cool. And again, this isn't the last card technically, because we do have one more card. I don't know if this is actually like completely linked to it. I think it supports both like fire and water stuff, which is cool. But let's go ahead and check it out. This is the final card, Turmoil of Sea and Flames. It is a normal spell that says you can only use each effect once per turn. You activate 1 of these effects. Discard 1 water and target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls to destroy it, or destroy a fire in your hand and then you can draw 1 card. Also, if your opponent controls a monster, you can banish it from your grave, then target 1 level 7 or 8 water or fire in your grave and special summon it. Honestly, I'm not too sure how great this is, so at least for Mermail or whatever. I think this is pretty neat, pretty interesting, because it does trigger all of your Fire King stuff. The problem with this is that all of your Mermails and Atlanteans that require like stuff to be discarded, or most of them at least, not all of them. Like Gundy, for example, triggers off just being discarded. Most of them say if it's discarded to activate a water monster's effect or something, and this isn't treated as a water monster effect, so it's kind of just a pop, which is probably why they got like the better effect technically. But I don't really think it's worth it for that. And then this is just a bit of a niche comeback tool when you'll probably already have enough ways to come back in general. With that being said, am I satisfied with this Mermail support after waiting so long for it? Honestly, yeah, it does not seem bad at all. So the waterlock is like a touch annoying, but otherwise if they weren't waterlocked, they'd kind of be able to just kind of do whatever they want, which is a little bit frustrating. I know as someone that plays Mermail, and I've had a lot of people get really annoyed by the way I play the deck. But I really do like basically every single one of these cards. So Mermail Shadow Bodyguards, extra multiple copies of Neptabyss that you can get super easy. Abyssrhine is just impeccable. Both of her effects are just huge. It's a disruption, it's draw power, it's also a search. Finally, we have the new Poseidra, which is just an insane board breaker, by the way, and board builder. Again, link it off, get all your bodies back, and then just start popping off on your link plays. Neptabyss the Royal Mermail is probably like one of my least favorite cards from the wave, mainly because, again, it is a little bit niche, having to make a link 3. It's specifically something that doesn't like actively like break your opponent's board or anything like that. But this does add the new Abyss Sting, so I have actually increased the favor of the card a little bit, because the new Abyss Sting of Triaina is really good, because it's just a free monster reborn, y'all. You can easily use this, doesn't negate the effects or anything, so you can easily use this to go into the Neptabyss search for this, and then use this to bring back something like a Megalo, and then Megalo contribute a monster to attack twice, and now you have a good amount of damage on board. I'm not sure if it'll make Mermail like a super powerful threat or anything like that. It does still have the issue of having to play a lot of engine like in the deck. You don't really have a lot of space for non-engine, and you'd probably just end up like really wanting to go first most of the time unless you're playing a blind second board breaker build, which again is a little more viable due to this support. But we will have to see what happens, because that's gonna do it for the video. If you liked it, please sure to leave a like, as it helps put this video and the channel into the recommended. And if there's concern or someone like it, like the rest of my review series and some Mermail content, I will absolutely have a bunch coming up once this stuff comes out. Then perhaps consider subscribing and turning on notifications, because support just time or anything else, and it's absolutely free. Also, you can support me directly getting some awesome t-shirt merchandise in the process. Check out Tapio cards and link down below. Use code Aurora5 for 5% off your purchase at checkout, and support me financially. Also, be sure to check out the Patreon for some other awesome benefits if you want to support me with some money. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.